So first part of that passage really flows on from last week. The man came and said to Jesus, "Help me sort out my inheritance," and Jesus was not interested in that. But at concluding that part, he said, "Sell your possessions, give alms to the poor." Mostly, I will encourage you to look back at last week's sermon, which is on the YouTube site, but it does play into the rest of the text as well. Then we get this bit about being ready, dressed for action. What could that mean? The image, surely, that was in the minds of the faithful Israelites Jesus was speaking to is the Exodus. Yeah, that's the time when God was setting his people free from Egypt. He said, "Right, I'm going to do a thing. I'm passing over. You stand up, eating your food with your sandals on your feet and your packs on your backs, ready to go." People hearing the call, "Be dressed and ready for action," know this is, God is saving us. We need to do our part while God does nearly all of the rest of it. That is a call to be ready to join in. And it was quite a relevant call at the time. These people did need to be ready for persecution. Jesus was proclaiming a new kingdom, that he was in charge and not Caesar, and there was going to be pushback. And there was. There was an immediate meaning to that warning that he gave them. The temple was destroyed. If you go to Rome at any point, if you have a holiday in Italy, you'll see the Arch of Titus there with carvings of Jewish people being carried off into slavery. This was a real and pressing thing at the time for the people who heard it. I don't think, for the most part, we're in a great deal of danger in this country being carried off into slavery right now. The immediate meaning must be something different. What can we learn from this passage, from Jesus' warning that when we stand up for our faith, that there are going to be consequences? Then we move on to the second bit of the passage about the master. Who could that be? Who gives his servant a job, a simple job. Pay attention, there's going to be robbers. I'll be back sometime between midnight and 6 in the morning. You better be ready when I come back. I'm not good at staying up, but that's it. Right, pay attention, I'm coming back. You guys have one job. Do you know that internet meme? People who have one job. What do you think? Guy painting the road? Guy had one job. They meant, you matter, don't give up. But you can read that the other, you don't matter, give up. Careful with your signage. Yeah, it's going to happen to one of our cones one of these days. So, you're supposed to move them out of the way. Yeah, you're not going to those, are you? You've got one job. We got any proofreaders in? Count them. Yeah, that's 6 bananas. Not all of us are getting this. Star Trek, not Star Wars. Very different things. If you're going to get your friends to do this, make sure they know which order to stand in. You have one job, Jesus says to his disciples. I don't ever have a go at those people. You know, the people who you see on the road sometimes spotted. It's supposed to say stop and people haven't spelled it right. If you're ever doing things one letter at a time, spelling goes out the window. People who have one job, it's often harder than you think. Toby and I get this all the time. People will say to Toby, "Oh, can you just do this?" While you're doing all these buttons and doing the video and working, can you he has one job. Toby's one job has about 15 jobs in it. He makes it look easy. It's not necessarily. What's your one job as a Christian? Okay, that's the question. What's your one job? I'm going to actually ask you that. If you had to pin it down, if you had to sum it up, genuinely, what's your one job as a Christian?
To tell people about Jesus and his message.
To tell people, that's a pretty good answer, Shirley. I like that. To tell people about Jesus, that's your one job. I'm not sure it's the only answer. I think there are going to be other things. I'm not saying better. But yes, Max. To follow God's teachings. That's a pretty good one. Paul.
To be me.
To be you. Your one job is to be you. Oh, that's good. I don't have to be you, do I? Yes, to be you. I'm going to talk about that. That's interesting. We're getting all of these things are kind of part of our one job. What's your one job? I like that. Paul's one job is to be Paul. To speak about God. To follow his teachings. Kim. To love everyone. That's pretty good. We might come back to that. So I do have answers. It's not, why have we got this vicar? He makes us do all the work ourselves. This reading, I was reading something that the Archbishop of York said at the Lambeth conference, and I thought it was so good, I'm just stealing it. So this is a sermon that somebody else wrote, it was a letter. So, a few years ago, this is Bishop Stephen Cottrell, I was at Paddington Station in West London on my way to Cardiff. I was buying a coffee. While my coffee was being prepared, a young woman turned to me, looked me up and down and said, "What made you become a priest?" Now that's an interesting question. I said, "I've got two answers. I've got a very short one and a slightly longer one. The short one," I said, "is God." I thought I wouldn't mess around. I'd cut straight to the chase. I said that I believed in God, and I believed that God believed in me, and that even though I wasn't brought up going to church, somewhere along the pathway of my life, I'd come to encounter God. And it wasn't for me a thunderbolt conversion, nor did it mean I was unfamiliar with doubt and darkness. It's just that I'd arrived at a point where the world made no sense without God. Moreover, as a Christian, when I said the word God, I saw in my heart, I saw in my imagination the person of Jesus. We know God because we know Jesus. Jesus is the one through whom God has a human face and a human heart. That Jesus was God speaking to us in the only language we can understand, the language of another human life, speaking to us about our own flesh and blood. That was the short answer, God, and God as revealed in Jesus Christ. The slightly longer answer is that I wanted to change the world. I said to her, "I don't know what you think when you look at the world. When I look at the world, I see confusion and pain, and I want to change it." I also said, "I've got a diagnosis. I think I know what's wrong in the world. It lies with the human heart. The world needs a heart transplant. The world has a seriously bad heart condition." "No," I said to her, "I need a heart transplant. That I would be a better person and the world would be a better place if I had the heart of Jesus. So that's why I'm a Christian. I believe in God because I've seen him in Jesus, and I believe that God and only God can change our hearts." I also shared with her, when I say I believe in God, I don't believe in God in quite the same way as I believe the sky is blue or the sun rises in the east. I believe in God the way I believe that love is real. Like Chopin's nocturnes make me cry. It's a different kind of reality. In fact, it's more real. That's the heart of the matter. And she then said to me that when she meets people of faith, she found that they fit into two categories. It seems like their faith is like their hobby. They go to church on Sunday, but it doesn't change their life on Monday. Or they embrace their faith so tightly, it frightens everyone else away. And I've seen these extremes, and she said to me, "Is there another way?" And I said, yes. Yes, there is. The way of Jesus Christ. It's the way of true humanity. I said to her that God does not want to change her, but that God does want to change her, but not into someone else. God wants to change her into the person that she's meant to be. Bonus point for Paul. At this point, I had to get the train, and we went our separate ways. If we have one job, I would suggest it is to take our faith seriously, to take Jesus seriously and allow him to change us into whoever he's calling us to be. It's to try and live on that path between those two types of people of faith this woman had experienced, to be dressed and ready for action. Those Israelites in Egypt were ready to go, eating, standing up with their best running sandals on. They were called to do their part in God's mission to save them. Not more, not less. They couldn't save themselves. They couldn't run around Egypt undoing the things that needed undoing. They couldn't fight the army. If they tried too hard, they'd get in trouble. But if they didn't pay attention and just sat around without their sandals on, eating whenever they wanted, lounging around, they'd miss it. They'd miss out on what God was trying to do for them. They were called to do their part while God did his. This one job of taking our faith seriously, I think, has a lot of moving parts, but that's the one job. I think, I would say, your faith should cost you something. If we're taking it seriously, it should be, to some extent, sacrificial. It shouldn't be a burden or a chore. Life with Jesus is a joy. His burden is light. His yoke is easy. But faithful service to Jesus does involve repeatedly giving stuff up and giving stuff away. It should, at different times, in different ways, cost us money. Money that you give away in causes, to the needy, to the poor, to the church. Let's be frank, if we're going to do what God is calling us to do here at St. Wilfrid's, we do have to pay for it between all of us. The money doesn't come from anywhere else. But this isn't another one of those pleading, begging sermons. And you don't have to give all your money away. But you perhaps ought to be asking yourselves, we all ought to be asking ourselves, when's the last time we did go without something to be part of doing what kingdom work we're called to do? It should probably cost us money that we don't earn because we make different decisions about our career, about our work, about how much we earn and what's important to us, our investments, because cash and income and profit should not be our priority. But it's not the money, is it? It should cost us much more than that. It should cost us our reputation at times. If we have never had to stand up against culture for a thing that we believe in, then something isn't right. We're only part of culture and not part of something different. It should cost us a moment's thought about who we play with, whatever age we are. If you're in a playground or if you're constructing a dinner party, if you're not having to occasionally think, no, I really ought to be inviting those people. They don't get invited. I ought to be playing with or conversing with or drinking with those people. They don't get that otherwise. We're missing out. Who are we including in our circle of love? It should cost us our time as we go to church or pray or read our Bibles or go to a small group or commit to turning up and reading on a Sunday morning or leading intercessions or helping with pride vigils or things like that, or being the warden. Somebody's got to do these jobs, and that can't always be someone else's jobs. At particular times, it should cost us our time to do this stuff. It should cost us mental effort. We should be thinking carefully about what we weigh and weighing up what we read in the papers, how we should vote, how we should act. It should be a bit of extra effort there. And it should cost us our comfort, like those beautiful people who engaged with our Living in Love and Faith course across the parish, where we did that, here or in home groups, saying, I'm not really very comfortable talking about sexuality and gender, but it's important, so I will, because this is a pressing issue, and my friends will ask me about it, and as it turns out, as we gathered and heard stories, this is a thing where people are hurting and are damaged, and I would like to be part of the solution and not part of the problem. That's the thing. It should cost us that sort of discomfort. And discomfort is less important than dealing with justice and dealing with truth. Church, one of my favourite sayings, church is a place where everyone should feel safe and no one should feel comfortable. It should cost you your pride, I think, your faith. It's Pride Day. Pride's a funny word, but in some senses, pride's not a good thing, is it? And we should remember that we're called to offer forgiveness and to seek it. It should be uncomfortable when your parents are telling you off and a small part of you realises that they might be right and not fight back and just say, oh, I'm sorry, maybe you're right. But it should make you uncomfortable when you're cross with your kids and they do push back and say that's not fair, and a part of you realises that they're right and you're just angry about something else and being defensive, and stop and apologise and reconnect. That should go both ways. We should apologise to our kids. Or a million other times, parents or not, that we dig in and defend instead of listening and climbing down and saying, I was wrong about that, I'm sorry. It should make a difference. Let us not be those Christians who look like going to church is a hobby. But don't worry about it, okay? It's not a lecture, it's not me telling you to do better and pulling your socks up. We are saved, we are loved. Just like the law was to the people who God had saved, the law was always a response of grace. Oh, we have been saved. What can we do, Lord, to say thank you? You're already saved. You are already chosen. You are already loved. And there isn't a thing you can do to make God love you any more or any less. I say this again and again. We are called to respond to God's love for us, but not to earn it. You are saved and called, therefore, to rejoice and enjoy it. All this stuff that I talk about, that you call discipleship, that's saying, I'm going to follow God's instructions for my life. I'm going to talk about Jesus, all of that stuff. We get to do it, not we have to do it. We shouldn't worry too much about those costs. Yes, it will cost us our time and our pride and things like that. But as you do those things, life is better. I'm convinced of that. It's true. Okay? If you prioritize having your own time, having your own money, having your own independence, all those things. That's like last week. I was wearing that crown. And it's as we take that off and say, you be in charge, Lord, that life is worth living. And you get that treasure in heaven. We talk a lot about treasure in heaven in church, which does not mean nice things will happen to you when you die. Heaven is where God is, and it's now. Life in heaven is life with God now. It is surrendering and saying, I will take this seriously, Lord. I will do the things that you call me to do. And in doing that, I will become the Paul you have called me to be, or the Max, or the Shirley, or whoever you are. Acting out our faith in all those ways, I think, places us in the sweet spot, the presence of God, where we always are, but where we notice it and can interact with him more deeply and more often. In that place we are blessed, the kingdom grows, and we are a blessing to others. That was always the call, wasn't it? Right from Abraham, who we heard earlier. I will bless you so that everyone else is blessed through you. Who doesn't want to be part of that growing kingdom? Who doesn't want to be blessed to be a blessing? Who doesn't want to be salt and light and joy and justice and peace in Calverley and beyond? People are drawn to Christians like that. Let us be them. Not hobbyists, nor tightly clenched gatekeepers. People whose existence points to the kingdom of heaven, for they live there. You have one job, and it is to join with the master of the house, the Lord of love, to take him seriously the way he calls us to. And that job, as we've seen, it has many aspects. But at the core, if we have one job, it is to love. Good answer, Kim. It is to know that we are loved and to love others. And on Pride Day of all days, that message for me rings loud and clear. Thank you.